Hello and welcome. Great to be here on this wonderful day. We have prepared something very special today, and I'm really happy that so many of you found the time to tune in. In a digital workplace, there's always a situation that an employee comes up and wants to integrate a system that is crucial for the working day. So the big question in the ICT is then, how do you do that? Is there actually a way to integrate a system securely, easily, and for the employee to access without any hassle? And can you integrate it in a way that the workload for the ICT department remains minimal? These are the questions that we are tackling today, and we have brought together two experts. Christian Herty is managing partner at Geodesic, and his experience in digital spans over 23 years, where he advised clients on different topics and on the potentials in the digital and online worlds. I am always amazed by how many tools he knows, so be prepared for some great advice. I'm sure he has some real gems in what he's going to be talking about. Digital potential is also one of the main drivers for Michael Weiss. He is CTO at Innobit, and he is a real pro when it comes to Microsoft technologies, especially SharePoint, Microsoft 365, and Azure. He brought some really interesting customer cases, practical examples of different cases like how to integrate SAP systems or ERP systems into your digital workplace. So I'm sure you're especially looking forward to that. At the moment, in current times of increased home office, there's one topic more popular than ever. And yes, we will cut a bit into the Microsoft Teams sphere as well. But keep in mind that integration spans over the whole digital workplace ecosystem. So we aim to give you a general overview of how to integrate different systems and how to profit from the possibilities that emerge from this integration. And one more thing before I hand over to our experts. We have reserved some time at the end to answer your questions. If anything comes up during the webinar, please do use the panel on the bottom section. There is a Q&A section, a chat section. Reach out to us, and we will do our best to get into those questions at the end. So now I'm very happy, and I'm looking forward to the session. Michael and Christian, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
Hi, Christian.
Morning.
Good morning, Christian. As presented by Nadia, I'm Michael Weiss. I'm CTO at Innobit, and I'm very happy to be here today to have the discussion with you, Christian, about the digital workplace and the integration of it. I have some question for you, Christian. What is the motivation, or what are the motivation of the customer? Why do they want to integrate the digital workplace with line of business system?
Well, one of the common misconceptions is that it gets pushed out of a technical need, and something that we see often. You've seen quite a bit. Rather than coming with a set business case, there's an immediate IT drive. We need to integrate in order to save costs, save licenses, make more use of the data that's available without buying new licenses. But they're not coming with a concrete business case. They just think that integration is cheaper, integration is more efficient, and they're not considering what they're actually using those applications for, who they're trying to connect with those, and what kind of business cases that they can build around those that they're actually trying to realize, which would make integration a little bit easier.
Can you give us an example of some business cases?
Sure. When you have marketing teams that need to coordinate with the Salesforce, and you have a CRM solution that is constantly generating all the real-time pipeline data, and the marketing team could use that to react to the market to see how the market's moving, but don't necessarily need access to the CRM, need to understand it, which has its own complexity. They just need to get information from it. Integrating that into a space that is more commonly used or that they are already familiar with makes more sense. It doesn't just save money, it also makes their experience a little bit more streamlined.
This example of business case you told us, you presented us, are they more related to the intranet part of the digital workplace or more in the collaboration part or both of them?
Well, I think that singling out individual units in the digital workplace is very difficult because, after all, the digital workplace is a vibrant ecosystem. Now, the intranet has become more and more the portal for an easier place to consolidate, to integrate, because it is a single point experience that's shared by all. But that's not always necessarily the case. There are many different contexts, from someone in the field that's running on a mobile device, or someone who's working in a train, to someone who's working in the IT department, HR, in an office, and they're using their native tools that are more powerful, direct, and have direct interfaces to them, but they're also needing to communicate that information to others, whether it's information about HR or being able to extend profile information based on what HR does, whether it's taking normal operational streams and processes and allowing some of the triggers, some of the process moments to be placed in environments that are more accessible to everyone. So whether that's the intranet, whether that's an application that they're natively using. So just nailing it down to one place is the mistake of not seeing it as an ecosystem, and more importantly, not following a specific business case. What am I actually trying to achieve before I'm trying to do that technically?
Okay, do you have a best practices or a methodology to tackle this type of projects?
Well, many are already familiar with just standard requirements engineering. It's not something that's new. The problem is that when the primary motivator is we need to integrate, but we haven't really taken time to think about it, it's really just about doing homework. Now, we have a methodology at Geodesic where we can streamline and accelerate that process. We've collected quite a bit. We don't start from scratch and don't try to reinvent the wheel every time. So we've already got a very good basis to work from. But really, it's about requirements engineering. It's about gathering what the actual needs are, what you were actually trying to achieve from a business point, but also some business engineering. What's possible? What's technologically possible today that may not have been possible last year? But formulating that into an actual business case. Why am I doing it? I'd like to do this because it will achieve. Then saying, with these cases, could you help me? And that's where that change happens when I, rather than just saying, Michael, help me. We need to integrate. We have all these systems and we need to bring it all together. It's a question then of, Michael, can you help me? We want to achieve that this data also appears here and this data appears here. Bringing that together in a case. And so it's more of a question of, yes, we can do that, rather than we have to think about that. What are you trying to achieve? I'm sure you've encountered many of these situations. Help us. We need to integrate. We need to put these together. We're trying to, it's time. Our competitors are digitally transforming, and now we need to integrate and consolidate. And we have all these systems, and our ERP, our CRM, we may need a new intranet. We may already have one. Can you help us? Where do you go from there, and where do you start?
I understand. Can you explain us how to avoid a failure in such a project?
You don't really avoid failure. You make mistakes. Mistakes are part of this process. The question is you need to record those mistakes, recognize them, and then adjust appropriately. It's part of all change management, which should today really be a common practice. It isn't yet, but so avoiding failure in that sense. Avoiding the major failure at the end is just doing your homework, taking the moment to say, what am I trying to achieve, or what can I achieve, and asking the question.
But the technology is changing very fast. We have the cloud, we have Microsoft 365, so bringing each week new features, new functionality. It's like a moving target. On most of the customer want to integrate, for example, some process to streamline process between the core systems, the ERP, the CRM, on the digital workplace, mostly in the cloud. But how to avoid this complexity of such complex system? Where to start with? Where to begin? Should we begin with the IT guys? Should we begin with the business? Should we pick up one process? Can you guide us? Can you give us some example?
Well, honestly, the instinct is always right. Innovation and technological evolution are our advantage, and are the advantage that we should be taking every single time. It's not a disadvantage. The problem is we need to ask the question, what's possible today?
Yeah.
Can I do this tomorrow? Reevaluating after I've implemented, is there something that I can improve? Are there new possibilities that have opened up? And also holding a close relationship with your technology partner to be informed when there's a change, when something has happened, when new possibilities open up that may have come out of the requirements list, out of the needs that you've managed to put together, that may not have been possible today, will be possible tomorrow, weren't possible a year ago, but are possible now. It's really just recording those and maintaining those throughout, rather than just creating a single project, hoping it's successful, and then letting it die. But it's also about embracing the fact that these changes are happening, and we see those as improvements, and keeping that open dialogue, which makes the job a little bit easier when it comes to, I'd like to have something, and it was supposed to work like this. Now, how do I do that? Because my world, my ecosystem looks a specific way, and I have. And so when someone comes and approaches it from an implementation standpoint, having done the homework, knowing what we'd like to achieve, it becomes much easier to actually implement, because now you're no longer investigating what are the wants and needs, but you're now investigating, is it even possible to put that solution together, and you're putting that time in. And I imagine that when it comes time to do that handover and say, okay, now we're going to take a look at this from a technological standpoint. These are the systems that we have available. It becomes easier for you as an implementer to turn that around, which I throw the question right back at you is, I'm sure you've had the challenge where you've have the experience of, we just want to integrate. But when someone actually delivers, okay, we have a fairly concrete idea of what we want to deliver. We don't understand it technologically, but we needed to tackle this. And they have some fairly complex systems. Some of them, especially the ERP systems, are quite proprietary. And there's some interesting challenges there. When you can work with the concrete solutions, where do you get started? How does that help you speed up the process and move into an actual solution?
Yes, in most of the case, we are working with standard components. I will say in most of the case we are using third-party products, or we are using a standard component of Microsoft. We are using the standard APIs to integrate the systems. But it's very important to have a clear vision and strategy what you want to achieve, like you told us. Maybe we can take a look at this slide from Innobit. This is how we describe the digital workplace. It's important to understand the concept of the digital workplace. On the top you have the portal, the access. On the bottom right you have the devices, all the devices you can use, mobile device, PC, etc., laptop. And on the top, on this portal, you have also the personalized component of the portal, where you can only see the component you need for your daily work. And here, very important are the 3 C's: communication, collaboration, connect. And when we are speaking about integration of line of business system into the digital workplace, from a technical perspective, we are speaking about connect. Connect is the masterpiece for the integration. We have several type of customer and projects. Some of them told us, hey, we want to use the standard features, standard integration possibility. We don't want to develop. We don't want to buy something. Then we have options to do that. We have good options. Actually, if you, for example, take a look at Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Teams is very, very loved by users. At the moment, it's an explosion with Teams. How, for example, to integrate line of business data into Teams for first-line worker. That are the type of question we have from our customers in our projects. How to, for example, trigger information if you have, for example, a process in the CRM, for example, a sales process. Then the sales process starts with an opportunity, and then the opportunity you need to store some documents. On the sales team want, for example, to work with Teams. They want to use Teams. They don't want to use the file chat. They don't want to use the old school systems. They want to use the new technology. And the challenge here is to integrate this information, the data, the document, the metadata of the CRM system from the sales process into Teams. To do that, we have several possibilities. We can use standard components. We have good apps, personal apps or tab apps, or bots. We can integrate directly into Teams. But here it's more the definition. What do you want to achieve? When are the stakeholders happy with the result of the projects? On, as you say, it's a project. I'm sorry to say that it's not. It's when the project is ended. The project is not ended because we are on the cloud. The cloud is changing. The product are changing. You cannot tell us, yeah, the project is ended. You have to organize a team to do the change management. As you said, to take a look at the changes, to adapt the changes, to do training, adoption, new functionality, or in the technical backend, how to integrate the new changes. Will we break the service if we do a change? This is very important because if we integrate line of business system with the digital workplace, the digital workplace is becoming a core system. It's no more just collaboration and content management. It's a lot more. Yes, this just some example. What we are seeing at the moment are in the area of Connect are integration, for example, of SAP systems, where the customer wants, for example, to manage asset in SAP. They want to manage other business object into SAP, and they want, for example, to have a trigger.
Right.
If I create a business object in SAP, for example, an asset, a building, and they want to manage building information, to do some invoice about
So a concrete business process.
A concrete business process into SAP. And they want, for example, if we create a new business object, to create a collaboration room in the collaboration area of the digital workplace.
In your experience, how mature are our clients when they're coming in to say we need to integrate these systems? Do they know their own systems? Can you help them discover those systems? How do you go about helping them realize that specific case and identify the system so you know what needs to be connected, what needs to be triggered, etc.?
We have several type of demand. Some of the client have a very, very wide experience with digital workplace, with the internet, or with the collaboration. For example, they are working since more as 10 years with this technology. They have a clear vision. Hey, they have the digital workplace, and they, for example, they want to present some information to special group of users. And they come to us with a clear vision. Hey, we have defined that Salesforce is the strategic trigger for business process around these processes. They come to us and ask us, hey, how to integrate Salesforce with these different areas of the digital workplace. And then for us, first question is, do you want to work with out-of-the-box possibility of Microsoft, like Azure components, platform as a service component of Azure, or do you want to buy third-party products, or can we go in direction of individual development of components?
So
it's very important at the beginning.
So you're incorporating them a bit into the solution design, so that to match their systems, find out what they have, and then deliver some of the options and possibilities that they might have to choose from in order to realize that case that was maybe loosely drafted.
Yeah, you're right, because it's important to understand the drivers of the customer. On the limit, not the limitation, but what are the factors? For example, what is the budget, etc. What is the timeline to propose a good solution for the integration?
Right.
Yeah, this is very important to have this key indicator at the beginning of the project. And clearly, if we have a good requirement engineering with clear goals on business case. To integrate, this is ideal for us.
So presenting them with the options, then of course reviewing those, defining a new business case in that case, and then being able to decide on those and be able to implement those. Do you have some examples of some of the more complex integrations that have been done? Tell us a little bit about what that's like, what some of the challenges are, and how you tackled those.
Yeah. Good example are we use line of business systems like ERP or CRM as trigger or as data connect. Sorry, as data connectors. Good example are project management processes where the customer have a project portfolio management tool where they manage the prioritization of the projects in the portfolio management. They define the budget, the business driver, etc., and then they start the projects in the project portfolio management tool. In most of the case, the process of the project management is related or connected to invoicing or to order core systems. And in a good case I saw is the integration of such type of line of business systems with a collaboration room in Microsoft. Microsoft SharePoint or Microsoft Teams, and they want to trigger the process if they have the approval for a new project in the project portfolio management tool, to be able to create automatically a project room in SharePoint or the project room in Teams, and they want to integrate the metadata of the business process in the line of business system into Teams or into SharePoint.
Right.
It is a good example of a project we are doing at the moment. And then these are bigger projects where external guests are invited to work with, to work on documents on the project facing part in Teams, for example, to have online meetings, to have notes, to have task management in Teams. But the trigger for them is the line of business system, the project portfolio management tool. This is a good example.
That's a great complex example where you have a very core business process being used. How do you go about testing that, making sure that with that many stakeholders involved, being able to both test it, make sure that it's accepted, and then of course creating a training process too?
Yeah. In most of the case, I will answer it depends, because it depends on the customer. Some customer want to have a very detailed process, how to test, how to approve each component of the integration of the final product. Other of them are telling us, hey, we want to take over the training, the testing, etc. It depends. Some customers have limited budget. They want only to have the integration, and they take over the training, the change management, the testing, etc., the documentation. Other customers want to give us the complete workload from integration, testing, training, documentation, on the lifecycle management at the end, on the change management, based maybe on a support contract. Yes, we have several type of examples how to do it.
Do you have any examples of things that have gone more or less well? What are some of the key success factors that you've seen in terms of who's organizing their training, whether it's the client, or what preparation they need, what they need for testing and stakeholders, which is something that we're very involved in, is trying to then make sure that the solution is correct, going on to being able to roll it out.
In most of the case, the clients want to use digital workplace to propose the trainings. They want to integrate the learning management systems. They want to take some videos. They want to use the technologies they have in place.
Building on what they're starting to build. Exactly.
Yeah. And then you receive an integrated solution, because you have the testing integrated in the digital workplace. Maybe you can use SharePoint or Teams to have a test plan, or maybe to have a task, or to track issues. Or maybe it's a complete development process to have to use, for example, Jira, or to use Azure DevOps, completely integrated into digital workplace. I think the customer wants to have one platform, one vision, one place to be, one place to work, and this is the goal. And then to have multiple facets, multiple view, multiple personalized experience to deliver. And then depending on your role, if you are in the project team, or if you are in the development team, or you are in the IT, then you have access to several types of information or task or document in your digital workplace. And this is, in my opinion, the best case to do it. But some customers have external system to use for testing, external system to use for trainings. It depends if we have a client with 500 employees or a client with 30,000 employees. It's a big difference. If you have to support a global rollout worldwide, if you have to make maybe several countries, yeah. What is your experience in delivering such type of project? If you have a worldwide organization and they want to integrate and to deliver a solution of this type?
It's not as complicated or as daunting as it sounds. The key thing, and unfortunately it's generally overlooked, is the fact that you need to get the right stakeholders on board in the beginning. Not only the sponsors and those who own and control the systems, but actually the business representatives that are involved in the processes that you're actually trying to gain value for, and that represent the organization. So moving to what I said earlier is it's the preparation point. What are your concrete business cases? But it's not just that. You've come up with a set of requirements. Whether it's a PMO portfolio management system where you have a very complex process, you can define it. You can find the solution, and you can, whether you do that in an agile way or not, and then you implement that solution. Now you're testing that solution, you're training everyone. Okay, people are happy with it, they're more or less happy with it, and naturally everyone goes through a small adjustment phase. But as we were saying before, things keep changing. And this is where this change management, and it really is more of a credo than a topic. And it shouldn't be delegated down as just as a side topic, but it's an ongoing process. So now you have to check periodically, half year, a year and a half down the line. Are people still happy? Are there new possibilities available? Are there things that you want to experiment with? And then guiding through, yes, we can make improvements. We've gathered experience because we're now using the tool. We not only were we trained in it, but we learned how difficult it was to learn it, how difficult it was to teach it, how difficult it was to use it, making those adjustments, as well as, okay, now we have a whole bunch of possibilities. So has anything happened? Is anything new? Or even worse, I keep getting a newsletter from 50 different vendors every single day, and they're saying, I can do this. I was at one of our partners, and I've seen they're now able to, some of the managers are enjoying their time during the COVID period and sailing their boat on the lake, and they're still logged in.
Yeah.
They're still seeing the sales pipeline, and they're still sending me messages and pushing the sales team.
Yeah.
So I want that.
Yeah.
I see that now. I want that, and so now I'm revisiting. Did I do the right thing? Did I implement the right solution? Do we need to change it? Is it a possibility for me to implement that new solution? Is it a process that involves ERP and logistics that's being triggered or being monitored by the intranet? Is it a monitoring what sales and marketing are doing? Is it a project management process for provisioning a new project, for getting approval, for a decision-making process? Every one of those then becomes a trial and error experimentation, but constant monitoring. And the constant monitoring really is setting the periodic plan, asking the questions, doing whether it's the survey or asking those users that are using it. And you can do this on a multinational level. Just because you are location split, you're not really divided today. Not in our culture today. Not with the technology that we already have available. We can see that now. But you can also break that across the cultural barriers. It's just a question of who your stakeholders are, what they're using, and making sure that dialogue doesn't disappear.
And we can use modern tools to tackle such type of project.
And they're becoming more omnipresent, and we're seeing, while we're seeing more and more tools, what's interesting is less and less get used because there is a path of least resistance, and that may not always be the right way to go. Sometimes resistance is good, but that's a completely different topic. It's a question of what is working and what is being used and accepted.
Yeah. We see the same in our projects. We see that the customer are bringing in new concept, how to work together, how to make online survey, how to participate in workshops. And we have to integrate all this concept into our project to propose the best experience for our customers. It's very important to have that. Yeah.
So to move into a little bit of a direction and try to generate some value for our listeners, watchers. So on one hand, I was discussing how you need to do your homework. You need to find out what your business cases are. Those have now been prepared. So the homework is done. We have the following systems. We may understand them or we may not understand them, depending. And we want to achieve these things. What is best for me to deliver to you in order to say, okay, now we're going to try to implement this. I'm trying to achieve this. And these are my systems. And some of them I understand really well, and some of them are being guarded by fierce dogs, and some of them are incredibly open, and some are shadow IT, and we don't really know. And we'll be honest, we may not have a full overview of that. What could I do to make sure that you can get straight to the target, look at the solution, and be able to turn those around?
Yeah, we need a good description of the business process. Where start the business process, maybe in the ERP system or the line of business system. What are the steps of the process? On what is the final product in the digital workplace? Do we have, for example, only one trigger from one side, and then we have the action on the other side of the digital workplace? Or are we using the product on both sides? Do we have, for example,
to be able to define the process and understand it.
Understand the process.
So review the process again, even if it's news.
Maybe have the right expert on the table. If you have
the right stakeholder there.
Yeah, but maybe also the technical guys. For example, if you have a SAP system you want to integrate, you need SAP experts. You cannot do it without the experts. It's not possible.
So if you have a watchdog or if you need the expert for the system, make sure that they're involved.
Yeah. And both sides, from digital workplace or from the ERP system, you need both.
Right.
Good description of the business process. What are the goals? What do you want to achieve? You have to describe it because each of the stakeholders needs to understand the goals. When is the project ended? When is
not just what you're trying to do, but why you're doing it?
Why you're doing it? That each stakeholder is understanding what we are doing, why we are doing it,
right?
Why? What do we want to achieve? And what are the KPIs when it's project ended? When
definition of success?
Definition of done.
Yeah.
Definition of done.
Yeah.
And we need to understand which type of methodology do the customer want to implement. It's more an agile methodology, or do they want to have a good definition at the beginning, and then do they want to have an implementation, a complete implementation, or it's like MVP, and then have a better.
What is their preferred modus operandi? Yeah,
the preferred modus operandi. Yeah, very important.
I mean, obviously, that's also to manage budget resources, but being able to budget for those things. So understanding what the vision is, what you're trying to achieve and why. Being able to define and more specifically understand the processes that you're trying to integrate. So that way, understanding what systems are actually involved. Understanding what the definition of success is, and that's not necessarily just the objectives that you're trying to set in your mission, but really what can you measure? What do you think that you'll be able to measure? And that might change, but you need to start somewhere to know what you're moving towards. Excellent.
Yeah.
I think we're doing fairly well on time. Do we have any other questions from the audience or?
Okay. Maybe I can give a more detailed example of some example of project we have done. It's just an overview where you can see the user is in the middle of the solution. It's very important that we define user-centric solution. It's an error to define a technical solution. It's very important to have the user in the middle of the solution. Maybe also it's a good idea to define some personas. Personas are very good if you have several type of user in your enterprise. If you have your first line worker, if you have information worker, salespeople, to define it in the middle of the project, and to define the requirements per personas. it's a very good idea to do that, in my opinion, because you can measure it at the end of the project.
Right.
Did we achieve it for these personas? And then the definition of personas help us later for the technical implementation, because we have maybe some security requirements, some compliance requirements. If they're using, for example, confidential data on mobile device,
Right.
we have to secure the data, etc., the device, etc. And in most of the case, the personas are binded to the devices. Good example is the first line worker. You have the first line worker. He's done using a PC or laptop. He has only a mobile device, and the personas is bound to this device.
Right.
In most of the case, the customer want to use Microsoft technology. They want to use Teams. As I said, Teams is a game changer at the moment. You know it.
Well, yeah,
Maybe.
the forced discovery for those who didn't know it, and then for those that were already using it.
Maybe. And they want to use Microsoft technology because Microsoft is very good in the workplace, into integration, into Office, into Outlook. You have all the information you need, all the good tools of Microsoft. And they want to have on the top some line of business system, like two key player are Dynamics or SAP. And want then to have a good integration between the documents they are producing with Microsoft Office. They want maybe to integrate data from the ERP system into the documents to generate document automatically, or maybe to integrate business process to create document in some business process, and then to have a good integration, a good usability of the system. This is very important. Because in most of the case, the ERP or CRM system are very complex.
Right.
If you take a look at SAP, the usability is, I'm sorry, but the usability of SAP is very bad. It's very complex. You need complex training. Mm-hmm. It's very expensive to buy the license, to have the right training for the right people for SAP systems. In most of the case, the customer want to have only the information they need in the tools they love. So I want to have the right information in Teams, the right information.
But that can be dangerous. That can be dangerous too. For us, it's a little easier from the beginning when we hear everyone tries to come in to be a bit of a business engineer or a bit of an engineer, and they're already talking about which tools they want to connect. And we try to take them away from that and bring them back to what are you trying to achieve, not what are you trying to connect. For the simple reason that they should be thinking about their process and not just maintaining a status quo that might have been wrong to begin with. What do you do when you have someone that wants to connect systems that don't make any sense? For instance, you gave the example of Teams, which there are so many similar functions. You know, whether it's even inside the Microsoft universe, whether we're using Yammer, we're using Teams, and then we also have a number of IT teams using Slack, and of course we're using SharePoint. We want to start an intranet project, or we did, that is SharePoint based, but we also have other systems like Confluence. We need to bring these together. We want to connect these, and they're not giving you a business case. They're just saying we need to connect all of this because we're using all of these solutions. Half of our company here uses G Suite. Half of our company here is an Office 365. Some are still are using SharePoint on-prem 2010 and are in trouble. Where do we go now? What do we do?
What we see at the moment is very interesting because for 3-4 years or 5 years, the Microsoft tools were not the best tools from a usability point of view or for functional point of view. Mm-hmm. If I take a good example of older version of SharePoint 2010, and if you compare for 5 years SharePoint 2010 with Confluence, the user told us, no, I don't want to use SharePoint 2010, I want to use Confluence. And then they started to build up communities, content into Confluence. And what we see at the moment, we have very big customer. They have Confluence with a lot of content, a lot of process integrated, and we are coming with new version of SharePoint, Teams, with very, very good usability, very good concept, and very good possibility to work with. And the customer asks us, what should we do? We have Confluence, we have SharePoint. How to convince the user to use SharePoint or Confluence? My answer is, please start to define what to use when. It's very important to define what to use when.
Well, sometimes you have to put your foot down as well and say, it's time to choose. It's time to choose.
Decision.
Consolidation also means elimination in some cases, and it means that it does become time to choose, and there might be a better way, which may not be immediately politically comfortable, but that still might be the obvious solution, rather than we're afraid we're going to lose something, therefore we want to maintain everything.
We have a lot of different ecosystem of IT technology we see in enterprise, by enterprise customer. And yes, the big question is what to use when. It's the same for the integration. Why do you need to integrate? What is the business case? I think at the moment the technology is very, very, we have the option to do it with standard components. We have the option to do it. But what is the business case, as you say it, and then later on what to use when, training, adoption, to have a good definition, to have a good rollout, to explain to the user what are the benefits of the integration, why we have done that. It's very important to do that.
A lot has changed in the last 3-4 years, specifically like the last 6 years. Things have gotten significantly less expensive. Some things have gotten a little bit simpler, even though they're always going to be, especially ERP systems are always going to remain complex to some degree or other. But things have gotten a bit simpler. Projecting into that, being able to budget for it, to be able to trust yourself or get the sponsorship for it is something that we encounter a great deal, and trying to be able to estimate what will this cost me. Can I get the money for it, for the individual research that they need to do in terms of initiating a project and getting the approval? May I ask around? May I look around for a solution to this? And then what do you answer there? How do you answer in terms of, well, it's going to cost, it's going to have, it's going to require, and how long does it take today in order to find the concrete solutions versus maybe 2-3 years ago?
I would say if you want to integrate, for example, 2 cloud technologies, if you have maybe Salesforce on Office 365, you have to digital workplace into Office 365.
Yeah.
In another case, you have another cloud big player like Salesforce. I would say it's very easy, because you can use the standard tools like Flow or Azure Function, and you can integrate it, because both of them are proposing APIs. Earlier, in the on-premises world, it was very difficult to have the APIs, to have the possibility to integrate. Also, Microsoft.
So you can reduce it down to the effort rather than worrying about a software construct or a license construct.
We were speaking about months to integrate such type of systems.
Right.
At the moment, we are speaking about weeks. It's a big change. Weeks. Yes, we're picking up weeks. It's very, very straightforward. We have standard connector. Also, Microsoft has complete changing the game for 5-6 years since Satya Nadella started at Microsoft. They defined their strategy to be more open source, to be more open for other systems, to integrate other systems. Right. I think for 7-8 years, Microsoft was completely closed.
Right.
They have proprietary systems, proprietary technology. If you take a look at the new technology from Microsoft, they're completely open. First of all, they are starting to build the APIs, to communicate the APIs to all the provider, to all the partner, and then they are building the solution. And this is very good, because all is open. You have a very quick possibility to integrate it, to build solution on them. It's a game changer. I think it's very, very quick.
It really is, and I think that it should take a little bit of the fear and trepidation away of doing that investigation, but also the experiences that you may have had before, now you can go with a certain amount of confidence and say it's going to be easier, quicker to find out what we have to do and what's possible than it may have been even just 2 years ago. So it's really much easier, and it's also much easier to ask for a budget or money for that when you realize that you can get the answers within, again, weeks or a short month. And if someone's trying to tell you that it's going to be much more complicated and take much longer to give you answers, then that should be a warning flag for you that says they may not be as experienced or as ready to be able to turn some of those solutions around.
This is right. Yeah, we are very quick.
So, following on this last discussion, there is a question. When you are approached by clients who want to break the approach into stages and have issues with knowing when to choose what and vice versa, how can you help them set a baseline for scope, integration efforts, and time to readiness?
This is a very good question.
It's not nearly as daunting as it needs to be. For one, you're beginning already with defining what your business cases are and the initial scope of what you're trying to achieve. And you're prioritizing those, and you need to weigh those in against then the solutions when you're moving into the solution design phase. Part of solution design isn't just about the possibility and about what you can do, but it's about how much effort that it will take, what the end result should be, which you can test against. Does that fall in line with your objectives? And most importantly, what in terms of priority for your stakeholders will have the biggest impact? Maybe not be the most urgent, might be the more urgent and have a lower impact, but weighing against urgency and impact in terms of what you can implement.
The quick wins.
And you can see what you can get. If you wait to have a perfect solution, it will never release.
Yeah, it will never release.
So you have to decide what is your minimum lovable product. We at Geodesic try not to buy into minimum viable products because we don't have the slide today, but we'll put a picture of the interesting cats. Many of you might know them. A minimum viable product is we don't have enough money and we're trying to save as much as possible. Therefore, what's the minimum we can do today? And that's not following an objective. That's just getting something done for the sake of putting it on a checklist. It's creating a minimum lovable product which will get used. It's going to advance the business process and meet the actual objective that you were trying to reach. It's going to satisfy the stakeholders, and if the stakeholders still aren't satisfied, it will require adjustment. So being able to plan that in and then doing that against what effort, which as we just established today, it's a little bit more on the cost comes from the effort and less from the technological side because you're already paying for most of the technologies. You might even be paying too much for too many technologies. It comes down to the effort. Weighing in what is that effort, playing the game of Tetris of what is the effort versus what is the business need, and then prioritizing that appropriately. And the open line of communication to defining that for every requirement you have.
Maybe we don't want to achieve the 100% solution, but more focus on 80% of the solution. If you take a look at Microsoft, they are doing the same on the cloud technology. The product are never finalized. They bring a new product. In most of the case, we have better products. They are working, but they are not finalized. And they are waiting of the user community, user-wise, to have feedback on the product, on the finalized product. The product are never 100% finalized. This is a new concept. You have to accept that. It's
Well, it's also a matter of experimentation. So you release a product in terms of what you are expecting that's going to have the best result. That's also within your possibility scope of time and budget. And then the next step, of course, is experiment with that and adjust it or manage that and reprioritize it appropriately. As we said before, projects aren't done. They don't just end, and you will need to revisit them. If you try to do everything today, it won't work. Therefore, create your scope for the individual phases that you foresee, and don't plan so far ahead that you're disappointed when you have to make adjustments in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So plan them accordingly, be a bit more flexible and agile in terms of giving time to adjust the things you have implemented, and then manage your resources accordingly as you roll it out and as you monitor and get feedback from the stakeholders.
Other questions?
So far, no. I think your information is very in-depth and very useful to the community, very clear. We have one more coming in as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So there was traditionally the concern of security with cloud-based or cloud-associated solutions. When you have senior internal stakeholders who still have this inherent concern, how can you demonstrate and communicate easily the current reality of cloud solutions?
You mean related to the security of the solutions?
Exactly.
Huh. Yes, the cloud has changed, I would say, because Microsoft, I speaking about Microsoft technology, not other cloud providers. Microsoft, by design, all the cloud solutions are designed for security. Microsoft is investing a lot of money to test that, to control that, to have no issues about security. This is very important. Security in the cloud is defined from end to end. For example, if you have a solution based on Microsoft Cloud technology, but the example I know, they are by design defined for compliance and security. At the moment, they are integrating new concepts into the product, like sensitivity labels, retention label, where we can automate the security over the life cycle, over the process. For example, you can order one new team, Microsoft Teams, for example, and define the sensitivity of this content, and you can define all the context of the security in these teams, but not only for the content, for the user, for the data, for the device, for the workloads, for the integration. That's all the component, all the users who are working with these teams are must accept this security, that is security designed by design in these teams. And Microsoft is driving the security because it's a game changer. It's a unique selling proposition of the tools to have end-to-end security in the products. I think what I see at the moment, it's not concern about the security in the cloud. It's more concern about the user. I think the user are the weakness in the security, not the technology.
It's a challenging and an exciting time because on one hand you have new legislation, the CCPA and GDPR, that were forcing privacy issues. You have compliance officers running to adapt what compliance rules used to be, which were placing everything into a vault. Well, as long as no one can access it, then it's safe. To a world where the responsibility for securing things is now going to the cloud provider, and there's a new and open dialogue, an ever-growing dialogue with the providers where Microsoft is actively trying to work with. Now, is it less safe, or is it more or less secure? Nothing that's plugged into to a network will ever be completely safe. However, the risks are being managed and they're being watched, and the popularity of the cloud actually came as a part of that push to make sure that the cloud was compliant, whether that was encryption of the data itself, where the data was physically being stored, down to the political, is my server data in a place that an intelligence agency or a competitor can get to it, and then on top of which try to comply with privacy issues. So it's a bit of an ongoing process, but the fact that it has matured to the point where major organizations that have incredibly stringent compliance rules, healthcare, banking, and finance, have finally started making those moves to cloud. That was that next step. And there's a very long list of the compliance issues that compliance officers are now trying to replace in terms of their old compliance guidelines.
You're right, Christian. At the moment, we see a lot of customers, for example, in the healthcare, they are moving to the cloud. They have no more concern, the security officer, checked all the topics, all the possibility of the cloud, and they accepted to go to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
It's no more a problem from a security and compliance perspective to go to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, the data is encrypted. You have the ability to classify the content. You can define several types of classification, and to integrate this classification into the tools, the data, the document, the user, the devices.
Absolutely.
This is very, very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Apologies, that's the bell. Our time is up today.
Okay.
So we need to be wrapping up. We enjoyed these topics too much, probably, so we could sit here and talk all day. We are accessible people. We exist in the world. Contact us. You can contact Innobit and Geodesic at any time. You want to ask further questions, please do. We are available. We will gladly help you with these. This will have been recorded and will be made available to everyone who's registered. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And hope you enjoyed this new format. Hope to see you again soon.